Hello, welcome to the 7th in our series, A Journey of Wisdom. If coronavirus has done anything, and it's done many things, perhaps one of the most culture-changing things is to make us aware of our own mortality. Our lives are simply not in our own hands. Our ambitions can be thwarted unexpectedly, our peace of mind disturbed suddenly. Contemplative Richard Rohr, who writes about wisdom and maturity, says accepting our own frailty is an important step on the road to wisdom. And I pray that not only for individuals but for communities and nations and communities of nations, this will be the case. One of the Psalms, Psalm 77, tracks such a journey. The writer, whoever they are, moves from self-absorption toward wisdom in just 20 verses. And it's a good model for us to examine. The psalmist has what in our family we call the plums. Poor little old me. He's completely focused on himself. In verses 1 to 6 he writes, I cry aloud, I seek the Lord. My hand is stretched out. My soul refuses to be comforted. I think of God. I moan. I meditate. My spirit faints. My eyelids are kept by God from closing. I am so troubled I cannot speak. I consider the days of old. I remember the years long ago. I commune with my heart. I meditate and search my spirit. In his view, he's done a complete inventory and found himself wanting in nothing. It's all about me. And then, because he has the plums and he's done nothing wrong, he looks for someone to blame. That's a normal human response. And he blames God. That too is a common human choice of scapegoat. So the psalm goes on. Will the Lord spurn forever and never be favourable again? Has steadfast love ceased forever? Are his promises at an end for all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his compassion? The psalmist is so self-absorbed that he challenges 3 of the covenantal ways in which God is identified by God's people: loyalty, graciousness and compassion. His misery forces the psalmist to ask some probing questions, although they can still be summed up as, what about me? The psalmist's distress seems to stem from the fact that God is not on call. In fact, returning to the first of our studies, the psalmist's distress stems from the fact that the covenant between God and God's people has no quid pro quo. Bad things happen to good people. Good people die of COVID-19, as we have seen. But then we come to verse 10. The Jerusalem Bible puts it like this. What distresses me is that the power of the Most High is not what it was. It's a verse with a choice. It sounds very familiar, doesn't it, to modern ears? The psalmist could leave it there. Things aren't what they were. God isn't what God was. Instead, though, the psalmist moves on. I will call to mind the deeds of the Lord. I will meditate on your works. Your way, O God, is holy. You are the God who works wonders. Finally, the psalmist remembers God's loyalty, graciousness and compassion. His focus has changed completely, away from himself, on to God. The psalm doesn't really conclude, it just stops. The psalmist has drawn no conclusions. There's nothing for us to learn about God here, only about ourselves. And perhaps that's also true of the pandemic. As we go through a time of questioning, we can become self-absorbed, or we can move on and ask different questions. That's what I hope this series of talks is helping us to do.